Jumping up to everyone. This is the first episode of Angkor Baby. I am an Angkor Baby. I'm Sreth Nay, and every week interviewing fellow Cambodians that are in the entertainment industry or have their own small businesses and trying to make a better tomorrow for all of us here in the U.S. And we're having one from Cambodia next week, so I'm pretty excited about that. But my guest here tonight is none other than Spring Roll Fever. Hey, Spring Roll Fever.
Hi, Jaditsu. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm really excited to chat with you.
Right back at you. I loved your stuff. My family friend back home in Denver showed me a video that was on Facebook. I'm like, who's Spring Roll Fever? And it's like, it's so cool. She's quiet, and I can relate because like all my parents
Yeah,
say that to me all the time, and my sister too. So it was awesome to see your video pop up like that.
thank you. Which video was it?
It's like it was like a parenting video,
Oh,
and
probably. I have a lot of those.
yeah. Oh man, it's so funny just to see like what your parents would say to you growing up, and it's just like it just
All the same.
all the same.
Yeah,
Absolutely, I
all
could see.
universal. My parents are universal. So if you get adopted one day, they treat you the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, so you're a content creator, and your early work was on YouTube, like your Cambodian Wen and Cambodian mom cussing, and I think that was the one, and the Cambodian kung fu moves. Like, what inspired all those in the beginning?
Sure. So it's so weird to like think about those three videos, but folks that watch those specific videos are now young adults. So I would probably say like about 10 years older than a lot of the folks that were watching that when they were like in middle school. So Springfield Fever was originally a sketch comedy group that I wanted to start in Chicago. I moved out there right after college. After getting a Bachelor of Arts in theater. So my professor said, if you want to get your foot in the door, Chicago is the way to go. So at that time, there wasn't a lot of like YouTube was very new, and there wasn't like a lot of videos of people that looked like us, and that was like the reason why. Like there was like Ryan Higa, Kev Jumba, like all these YouTubers that were Asian. I thought that was cool, and so I was like, you know what, like we don't have a lot of representation, for Cambodians. Like I think I had somebody on our team that was Filipino. The other guy I think was Filipino and also half Vietnamese. So and we also had like a Chinese guy. So like let's all like get together and just create content. So from that time between 2007 through 2009, we created a lot of sketch videos together so that we could use those videos to go on audition for things in Chicago. And those three videos that you mentioned were just like ideas for like myself. I'm like, what are some relatable things that, other people would find funny, just to like put on YouTube. And I never would have thought it would go anywhere. And then the next thing I know, like the subscriber count just like kept going, and it had a lot of views. I want to say like before I kind of disappeared in 2012, it was like I want to say like the New York, your Cambodian Wen video was like 100 something thousand like views. So it was weird because I was like, who's watching me? You know what I mean? Because you don't really think about that stuff. So that's kind of like where it all Springfield Fever got started, and then we kind of disbanded once I moved to Florida.
Indeed, what were like your early influences like sketch TV wise and stuff like that since you dove into sketch comedy?
Yeah, so I mean I love comedy, and when you think of like my comedians like what is it called? Krem, Akoy and Krem. Like those are two comedians that I just like grew up like I think most of us like grew up like watching, and it's just like funny. Like it's dumb, stupid slapstick, like just funny Cambodian humor. But I would say I was more focused on stand-up comedy from Margaret Cho. I really liked watching Ellen, but I really grew up watching like Mad TV and also SNL. But I would say like I was more like Bobby Lee fan from Mad TV, and I was like, these are, and that's kind of like what related to Springfield Fever was these sketch ideas of just maybe a 5-minute video or less of just little things that an audience could relate to. Um, so I would say Margaret Cho like is like my definite, that's my inspiration. Like she doesn't care about what other people think or what you joke about. And I do get a lot of comments on, my videos that saying like, you're really brave for like putting this content out there, because I think a lot of times like our culture is all like, we're supposed to, especially like as a female artist too, is like we're supposed to be like, oh, like this, and not loud and crazy like me. So I think it kind of, can go one or two ways. It can either scare you or you can enjoy the content. It can go one or two ways.
Indeed, like my parents were like that with me with stand up, and they're like, "We don't get this."
It's stand up. It can be raunchy, and some of the stuff that I joke about can be raunchy, and it can be a little bit too abrasive for our culture. Like my mom, like when I was growing up, she's always like, con anh, con srei, like, you have to talk, soft. He's like, you're so loud.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I can't help it.
Indeed, absolutely. Oh man, and you mentioned in 2010, well, you moved to Florida like shortly after your stint in Chicago, and what made you move to Chicago after the disbandment of Spring Roll Fever, the group?
So Chicago or Florida?
Oh, Florida. Yep.
Yeah, so Florida. So I was working in nonprofit, and they were starting up a new site over in Orlando, and they were like, who wants to go? And of course, like the older staff members were like, we have families, we're not going to move. So, I was single then and was just like, you know what? I'm not doing nothing. I can move. So I did not know anything about Orlando other than Disney, Universal, all the stuff like Nickelodeon, all the stuff you see on TV. And then when I got there, all that stuff was gone. But I basically moved down there for a job. And I think one of the things, we'll talk about that more later, is I remember moving there and I walked into a 7-Eleven. And I kid you not, I was not ready to be recognized because I just moved to the city. And I was like, this girl was all like, oh, I've seen you. And I was just like, who is this? Like, I'm on my lunch break. And she's like, yeah, you're on YouTube, the Cambodian girl. And I was like, oh, okay. And, it was like weird because I was like, I was at work, but I also want to be professional. So I think that kind of freaked me out a little bit. And I was just like, you know what? This is going to go like delete all these things, because I was like, I don't want this like coming into my professional career, because I do carry myself a little bit differently like while I'm at work. So that was like the first month I was there. I was like, who in the world? And that's when I realized like the heightness, or what is it called? Like the level of where Spring Roll Fever was at. I did not know that I would have been recognized in a 7-Eleven.
Wow. And it's crazy that you got recognized at a 7-Eleven in Orlando, and you got recognized in Denver. And
It's really weird. I will say that. I will say being recognized is really weird. It's happened here in Brooklyn. I was in a store at a bakery, and the girl just was like, I know you. And I was like, I just moved here. Like, I was like, oh yeah, like I follow you on Instagram. I was like, oh God, I just can't. And it happened in Chicago too. I was just like, what? And like most people, they would find that like cool or whatever. Like for me, I'm a very like private person, so I'm just kind of, which is weird because like I do videos and do, but like on a personal level, I'm very private. I was just like, oh my God, like how do these people like find me in the middle of like an event? Like, so yeah.
It is quite traumatizing because you don't expect it. It's like a curveball, like it just comes out of nowhere, and it's just like, I don't know. I'm pretty low key myself, but and I prefer to be that way. But going back to your early roots, like you were born in a refugee camp in the Philippines, and you moved to New Hampshire when you were 4 months old in 1984.
Yes. Wow. So this is how I remember. Obviously I don't remember anything about the refugee camp because I was only 4 months. So the majority of my life grew up in New Hampshire. My brother he's 4 years older than me. He was born in a refugee camp in Thailand. So all I know is New Hampshire. So moving from camp to camp and, like growing up, like I knew obviously like the environment was different because we were sponsored by like a local church group, and I just always remember like white people coming into our home and like I was just like, who are these people, like why are they coming into our home, and like why are we the only people that look like each other, you know what I mean? So it was a very like strange experience, and I kind of talk about it on my channel of, you know, this experience of being Cambodian but growing up in a state that's predominantly white. And, you know, what does that identity look like for someone like me who's trying to figure out, you know, being Cambodian, but also when I go to school, everybody does not look like me.
Indeed, like I'm an '80s baby too,
Hmm.
and we don't look like we're from the '80s because like Asians don't raisin, you know, and
That's true, because when I get to the yay level, I'm gonna look real good.
yeah. Oh man, I totally can relate to you because like I was raised in Pueblo, Colorado, and there's nothing but Mexican folks, and we were like the only Cambodian family for like 10 years, and it was just,
Yeah.
it was crazy, but it was
Try being like the only Cambodian family, because everybody, like there was, I feel like there was a group of families that moved to New Hampshire where I was from, and then everybody branched out and moved to Lowell. So we were the only ones left, and so I was just like, where did everybody go?
indeed. Oh man, Massachusetts. I've never been, but I've heard some great things, So
You should go, because it's I think, well, at least like Lowell, like it's definitely changed since the 90s, because I remember my aunt and my grandma, my cousins, they all moved to Lowell. But the last time I was there, like my cousin took me around, I was like, dang, this whole, you could see the gentrification happen just from like a 10-year span from like the last time, like every time, any, like even the town that I grew up in New Hampshire, like it's changed because, you know, the economy, everything gets better. Well, I don't know about now, but like, you know, visiting like years later, I'm just like, dang, like everything's like changed in a good way, in a good way.
indeed.
And they have
So
good food too.
so what?
They have good food too in Lowell.
Oh, I bet. I love my food. I miss it because like my parents are in Colorado and I have to make my own food, and it's just like bread and sandwiches again today.
Yeah.
Oh man, but anywho, when you were in high school, you were a band geek and a member of the drama club. But now I know why you majored in Bachelor of Arts in theater in Plymouth State University. Like, what were like your fondest memories of high school, and what did you not like about high school?
I hated everything about high school. Like, to be honest, the whole like being in band was what kept like me going, and I really didn't discover the theater part. Probably I would say like the last couple years of high school, because like throughout middle school I was like playing sports and I was just trying to figure out like where do I fit in. But like for band, like I knew I was like really good with music. I taught myself, well, I started playing the clarinet, I learned that through school, and then I taught myself how to play the guitar, I taught myself the bass guitar, like ukulele, all that stuff. So at some point in time I thought I wanted to be like in a band, but that didn't happen. But I remember like band was like, it was like the first thing in the morning, and that's like my favorite class. If I can get through the rest of it, I should be okay. But I would say like what I didn't like was, I mean, I'm in a school full of like white people, and nobody, I can't really relate to a lot of people because the experiences and the cultures are different. But I will say that going to school in New Hampshire, like I had like, for me, like a really good education. So there wasn't like, I didn't like start like on the bottom or anything. I mean, I got like tutoring and stuff for like reading, like growing up, because I was like, I don't understand what's happening. But you know, I like that I had a good education, because I don't think that certain stuff, like little things that I learned in high school, like keyboarding class, like a lot of people didn't have keyboarding class, or like music history, like things like that. So, but I learned that there's a lot of disparities in education as well. So
Indeed. Where exactly is Plymouth State University?
It is way up north. So I would say it's like it's not, no, it's not a private school. It's public school, public university. Was at some point called Plymouth State College, but they changed it to a university at some point. So if you're driving, let's say here's like New Hampshire and here's like Massachusetts, it's like way up here. And the only thing in that town is the college. So you can imagine what goes on there. It's a big party school, but I didn't go there because it was a party school. I actually went there because it was the only school in New Hampshire that you had to audition to get into the theater program. So
Wow.
like UNH, Keene State, like all these schools, like if you want to do theater, like you just can go do it. But Plymouth State, they require you to audition to get into the program. So I got in.
Nice. Congrats, and you're welcome. I'm so glad that you pursued it in Chicago, and after concentrating on acting and stuff, and getting your bachelor's in theater, of arts and theater. That's great stuff.
Mhm.
But let's see here. So you pursued theater. What was like your favorite to act in? Like whether it was in college or in Chicago. What were your favorite plays or productions that you were involved with?
Um, my favorite, oh my gosh, I don't even know. So my first play that I was in college, I auditioned. It was like my first one. I'm shocked I even got in. But it had to do with food, so it kind of ties into what I'm doing now too. It was called The Art of Dining, and it's about these like people that go and try to eat classy at this restaurant. I want to say like an hour and a half play with like no intermission, and the whole entire time you're eating, and to eat and act at the same time is actually kind of hard because you're like trying to eat this food that may or may not be made well that night of the show. Because I remember one night, I don't know if they were messing with us, but the food was so nasty, but we had to eat it because we were on stage, like live theater. But that was probably one of my most favorite plays. But it was a comedy play. I want to say by like Tina Howe. And then like my senior year, I was casted for Antigone, which was like Greek tragedy, super serious, and that kind of tested like where I could go, from comedy to serious like acting. So
Absolutely. And you also worked on some short films. What were your the short films that you worked on and all that stuff?
so in Chicago, it was for this guy wrote a short film called Traffic School. If I can find the video, I will try and post it to my page. But it's basically about this guy who gets a traffic ticket and his experience at traffic school. So if you've ever been to traffic school, it's like, I don't know. It's all different types of people. So I basically got stereotyped or typecasted as like the Asian girl who has like broken English, and she gets stuck in this classroom full of like oddballs who are just there because of a traffic violation. And they basically have this instructor that's like talking to you like you are nothing, like you're like dumb, and you're just kind of like, what's going on? But it's this whole like film about this guy's experience. So it was a very small like part, but it was a fun experience to be in because like the all of like the gear, the camera setting, everything looked like so professional, like a straight out like feature film.
Indeed. And while you were making short films and participating in plays and acting in them, you found another passion, which was working with the youth. Like, what drew you into working with the youth?
Yeah, so I actually worked at a summer camp in New York, upstate New York, for 3 summers called the Fresh Air Fund. So at some point, I was like doing the theater, but I was also spending time at the summer camps, like working. And my best friend's mom was like, maybe like theater is not just one of your passions. Like maybe the reason why you're continuously going back to work with the youth is that maybe your passion is different. So it really stuck with me, like what she said. And, I ended up working for a national like nonprofit service year program. And I was working with elementary school students for a year, and then worked on the following year to work with middle school students to basically get them on track to graduate high school. So that's kind of like how I got into work with education and nonprofit. And then like that's kind of also what brought me to Orlando too, was to continue building that capacity and impact working with education. So now it's a little bit different. I'm still working in like nonprofit, but more with healthcare and community-based programs.
Indeed. And so in 2016, you followed that passion of working with the youth, and you graduated with a nonprofit management from Northeastern University. What were those? What was those like struggles like, and what were like the whole experience like?
Yeah, so I just want to say for anybody that's like wants to do grad school, it's and work full time. So I didn't like just stop and like do my master's program. I was working full time, like at this point, like managing people at school, and I was doing like online work. It was an online program, but it was still demanding because you still had to do your homework and submit everything, do all your classes, and it was a full course load. Yeah, course load. But it was more rewarding once I got the degree, because then it's like now I have this, but it supplements, what I was also doing in theater. Because and theater is weird because like I think a lot of people view it as like, oh, it's just like people on the stage, but there's so much that goes into making a production like happen. I mean, I'm sure like working in entertainment is there's a lot of management going on, and I remember doing a lot of stage manager positions as well, like while we were in school. So it really takes a lot to manage like actors. So I kind of like used that skill set to what I was doing with my jobs in Orlando, was managing people, and those skill sets of dealing with like the minute things of how you manage actors is kind of similar to how you manage students and people or staff like in a school year. It's like I always put those two things together. It's like theater and education is kind of like the same thing. It's like a year-long production, and then when it's over, it feels so good to be over, and then you start the new thing again.
Absolutely. And speaking of like living in Orlando, you felt like you didn't belong there, and that it was like being compared to the Twilight Zone, which I can totally relate, because like I-4 just drives me nuts. I can't stand it. But like the I-4 eyesore is still standing there. They can't even take
Oh
that.
my God, I-4. See, now you just brought up like memories of all the crazy people that drive in Florida,
Yeah.
So I would say like New Hampshire, we're the best drivers. Okay. New Hampshire, just put that there. Chicago, I mean, there's bad drivers, but at least I feel safe, right? They're kind of crazy, but not too bad. I get to Florida and it's like all rules are out the window. Like there's no turn signals. Right? There's no turn signals. Right. It's like, are you going? I don't know. Are you going? I guess. Okay. Oh, you want to pass on a double yellow line? Cool. Stop signs are optional.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool. Red lights optional. I guess if they catch you, they catch you. But I was just like, where did I move to? And I say it's the Twilight Zone because like I did not know anything about Florida, and when I thought like things were kind of weird, like the people are kind of weird. I'm not saying all of them, because like some of my really good like friends are from Florida, but I don't know how to explain it. Like you go to Publix, right? You've been to Publix?
Oh yeah.
I just want to get my stuff, ring up my stuff, and just move along. Don't ask me what I'm buying. Oh, what are you eating tonight? Mind your own business. My friend was all like, just so you know, in Florida, this is what they do. So you just play the Southern like bell or whatever and just engage in the conversation. I'm like, I don't want to talk to them. But that's what I do miss about Florida is Publix. Their pub subs and the fried chicken is like the best sandwiches and fried chicken I've ever had.
Oh yeah, I love the pub subs. Well, like I just get the vegetable ones, but like, but I'll definitely try a pub sub now that I can start eating. Like quarantine's making me eat chicken now, because I'm just like, I'm tired of being a pescatarian. I just want some chicken.
So, yeah, I hear you.
Oh man, so you moved back up there after finding love and in Orlando, and you started your new job. And so is that where you're currently now?
Yes, so I am living in Brooklyn. Have been living here since 2018. So there was also like a, I want to say like a month gap of time before I started my new job. So just keep in mind, like when I started the education job in Chicago, there was like no breaks or in between. Like it was just consistently working with like little to no vacation. And there was a month where I just like did not know what to do. And something about being in New York made me want to like start back and like doing spring roll fever stuff again. And it's weird to like be that old lady who hasn't been on social media forever because like YouTube has changed. It took me forever to figure out Instagram, and now like I'm trying to figure out TikTok. I have to ask my nephew like, what is this? But there was that time, a month span of like, what should I do with my time during this month? So I was like, well, I said I'm, back in New York, like maybe something about being in New York and like seeing Broadway shows and things like that will get me inspired to do what I used to love, because I focused so much on my career that I paused everything on my theater life and my acting stuff to the side. So to start back up again, it was very weird at first. I still think it's a little bit weird, but I will say that I've met so many like wonderful people, like meeting you, and like I wanted to figure out what was my focus now moving with Spring Roll Fever, because I don't have the group anymore, and most people know me for my mom like cussing or whatever. Like I'm a meme now. Like somebody sent me a meme of like the my mom cussing. I'm like, oh my god, like why am I a meme? But I will say I wanted to. I think I want to say like Crazy Rich Asians was also coming out during this time, right? 2018. Yep. And that was a great movie and I was really inspired by it. But my thing was, I want to see more people in social media or like entertainment that look like us, that look like me, look like you. I don't think there's not enough Cambodian representation out there. And not that I or you should represent in the entire like community or whatever, because I think there's an identity that you have and I have as well, that I want to share with others. So if you can relate, cool. If you can't, cool. I feel like my channel that I'm trying to put forth is a little bit of something for everybody. So whether it's food, comedy, or just life things in like general, those are things that I want to talk about and make sure that folks that are younger generation can see that, okay, I too can do these things and put a platform. And it can be scary, right? Because I feel like sometimes as a Khmer artist or entertainer is you fear the judgment of your own kind. And that's what somebody mentioned to me. I don't know if you ever watched the video like How to Be Cambodian on YouTube. Did you ever? It's a really old video, but I like reconnected with the guy who created the video when he was like in high school, and I was like, hey, I just like want to say like reach out and say hi to you and all this stuff. Like he went to high school with my cousin, and I remember he said like it's good that you put yourself out there, because not a lot of people are able to do that. So I think that's kind of like the Margaret Cho in me, is like, I don't care. So if you don't like this stuff, cool. If not, you're more than welcome to create your own content. But that's my plan for Spring Roll Fever moving forward, is just to create things that I like. And if you want to watch, cool.
Indeed. I love how your main focus now is to bring comedy, food, and your life experiences into this, like as you mentioned, and it's great because like we need that, we need a voice, for the Khmer folks, and we have a viewer watching, so hopefully they jump into the comment section and ask us stuff, because we'll talk right back with you and interact. But like the cool thing in 2020 that present day is not only are you bringing Spring Roll Fever back with like the your videos on social media and so forth. But you're part of KMI, which is, I think that's how you pronounce it, but with a Q, which is a part of the LGBTQ Alliance, and for KMIs and their allies. How did you get involved with the organization?
Yeah, so again, like if I didn't have the Instagram account and didn't meet all these wonderful people, I think using that platform to figure out what is it that you want to share, like your content. And a part of, one of the reasons that, I had left social media was I was trying to figure myself out. I was coming out as, like a lesbian and trying to figure out what does that look like for me, but being Cambodian, but I don't really know a lot of people that, are like me, if that makes sense. And so DJ Honey, I don't know if you know her, but she's a very popular DJ in Long Beach, apparently. She does it full time. And she reached out to me talking about her organization that she started. And I was like, oh my God, like, where was this when I needed you, because I was struggling to figure out how do I talk about this, like with my own Khmer family and things like that. And so I said, you know what, when it comes down to Pride Month in June, so the June 2019, so I want to say I opened up my channel from June 2018, so a year after. I said, like, let's create something for me to officially talk about coming out, right? I've been out. It's just now, I don't think a lot of people knew that. So I wanted to share that story through that organization. So I know she shared her story. So I was like the second episode. And it got a lot of like, I was really nervous about it because it's like sharing something as personal as a coming out story is a lot. But I think I was more shocked by the support that I got from my followers, because they were like, we don't really care like who you are or like, what you identify as. We're still going to follow you and support you. And so that was meaningful. And some people, I did get a lot of unfollows. That's okay. Because maybe that's, maybe I don't want you in my circle, because I want to create that platform so that other people know that here's my experience. It may be different. It may look a little bit different than yours, but also got the younger generation too, or people that are even my age that have not come out yet and they don't know how. But if we tell more of our stories, people will be more open to coming out or sharing their stories and things like that. So that's what I would say being on the board with the KMI, with the Q organization is all about. So we're looking to get more folks to share their stories. So we hope that we can get folks to do that. So there's about 4 episodes right now, or
That's
3.
That's pretty awesome. You're growing, and so I'm proud of you for being a board member and all that good stuff, and branching out. And I got to interview DJ Honey now because
Yeah, you
she's
really
quite.
should. You really should, because she, I think, has like a good presence in Long Beach, and I think a lot of people know her just from the entertainment side. But one of the videos that I did with interview with her was, being Khmer and or being gay in Khmer, like what does that mean, and what is our experiences growing up? Because at least like growing up for me was you're with a man or you're with a woman, and like those are the two things that we just grow up knowing. But anything else is out of the question. So it's good. You should really. I would recommend you interviewing her, because she, I think, would give a lot of insight to the Khmer organization that she started, but also her presence in the Cambodian community in Long Beach.
And definitely, most definitely, I'll definitely reach out because I have like 3 guesses coming up, and one of them is one of your dear friends, which is Hella Shloy. So I'm looking forward to interviewing him as well, and bringing like all the Cambodian entertainers together, and at least create something cool, and Q out in LBC, and like make
Yeah.
it all pop up everywhere, and all that good stuff, and it's.
Should, and I think that's good that you're doing these interviews too. I mean, I do them for my own channel, so it's kind of weird to to be interviewed, but that's another platform. Like I don't think there are people going out and interviewing artists and seeing what our community is about. So I definitely encourage you to reach out to all of the artists or people in the community so that we all know each other, but also look out for each other because we are our own.
Indeed, and like one thing that I what loved about your like you being raised born in like a Philippines refugee camp was like my parents were there too, like at a Philippines refugee camp before they got here. So it's cool to see like what if my parents and your parents know each other? That'd be
I
cool.
know. It's so weird. So funny. Like when I say small world, like talk about like forget about like running into people and people like recognizing me. So one of the guys, there's this guy that I manage. He was like a 60-year-old-ish. I want to say late 50s, like early 60s, and I'm doing a training and I was like, hi guys, like my name Lena, and this is like my background. And I mentioned being born in the Philippines in 1984. And like we had a break during the training and he comes up to me and he's like, hey, do you know like what particular, camp or like the city that you were born in the Philippines? And I don't know, we figured it out, but he's like, oh yeah, like I worked there. I was like, oh my God, what if you like held me as a baby? Like I would have never known, And so I was just like, that's so weird. Like I'm managing you now. You could have known me as a baby, It's like weird, small world.
Absolutely, and like I like my sister. Well, like my sister was like born in Thailand in '81, and I was born in '82, which is like strange. I sound like I'm 15 still. Like I don't know. It's a trip. Like, but yeah, I was born in '82 in Colorado, so it's just our parents probably have met somewhere. I don't know, but
You just
somewhere.
have to say the name, and maybe if you have a picture, they probably know.
Oh, it's actually on my website, so I'll send you the photos of my parents and my sister, and maybe I'll send it your way and see.
Yeah, send it to me. I'll send it to my parents, and they'll be like, "Oh my God, I know her."
That'd be awesome. Good stuff. And man, is there any final shout outs that you'd like to give? And all that good stuff.
Shout outs. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the channel as like your first guest. I was like, oh God, why I gotta be the first? But just I would say just shout out to all of my supporters that follow me, have been with me through the journey of the early days of Spring Roll Fever. I hope that we can continue this journey together. And I will give one plug to Rep Cambodia just because I'm wearing their shirt. If you use my code Spring Roll Fever, you can get 10% off of the website repcambodia.com. So
Awesome, fantastic, and thank you for being on my show as my first guest. It's like a huge honor, and just to see your video from like a long time ago, and then get to interview you now is just it's
so weird. I wish I about the pang tao.
that'd be so awesome.
Why
Yeah. Yeah, that's good stuff. But yeah, definitely go to Rep Cambodia and put Spring Roll Fever to get your 10% off. I'm not even sponsored by them, and so I'll just give you an extra plug for you. But it means a lot. And thank you for subscribing to Spring Roll Fever on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. It's all out below. To their subscribe to Lena's Spring Roll Fever's all that stuff and follow. But yeah, I'm still rusty doing all these live streams and still trying to get used to it. I'm launching another one on Tuesday. I'm like, this quarantine better hurry up because I need to get out and do stand up again. It's just
That's awesome. I hope that you can do a show in the Northeast. Would love to go see it.
I would love to. I'm hoping to go and do it in New York. That'd be so awesome. I would love to. But Lena, thank you again for being a part of the first episode, or as my first guest as on Angkor Baby. I guess they say Jamriap Lia Hai, I guess.
Yes, Jamriap Lia Hai. I think it's Jamriap Lia.
Okay.
So I always say Alcontrad.
Alcontrad. Sounds good. And so I think I'll see you when we get off the air, I guess. I'll see you soon.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.